What is going on, everyone? Today's tactical session, we are going to be focusing on center backs. Today, we're going to be going over the roles and responsibilities, where to be positioned in and out of possession, and then lastly, we're going to be talking about any in-game scenarios that typically happen during matches. We're going to cover all those three things in this session today. So for today's session, in the screen that you see below, we're going to be focusing on the blue team, my two center backs, number 4 and number 5. So first, let's go over the roles and responsibilities of center backs. Center backs typically will be covering and defending the central areas. Anytime the ball is getting rotated side to side, they are going to be in one of these three zones. They're either going to be in the half space, central space, or half space. So for this particular example, if the ball ever gets rotated out to the right flank, typically the fullback is going to press that winger. The center back is going to shift over into the half space to provide that coverage and possibly pick up anybody in these zones. The other side center back is also going to be shifting over to provide balance for the center back that has shifted over, covering the fullback. And then lastly, it's the center back's job to communicate with their back line to make sure that everybody is in line together. So one of the responsibilities is for a center back is to understand that my job is to maintain my line and make sure that everybody's on the same page. So that means you need to be able to communicate effectively, command that back line, when to push up, when to drop off, when to shift left, or when to shift right. Next, for a center back, there's going to be plenty of moments where you might be under pressure. You might be under pressure offensively, or you might be under pressure defensively. Offensively, if you're getting the ball played to your feet, you should understand that stay composed, receive with one foot, play with the other. To make it easy for you, just try and find that center mid. Receive the ball, find that center mid to get your job over with. Obviously, there's going to be moments where you're under pressure, you can't find your center mid, or your center mid's under pressure. Maybe find your fullback, or maybe just restart with your other center back, or restarting with the goalkeeper. If all those options are not on, clear it. Don't be afraid to clear it. Get out of trouble. Make sure that you're defending your goal first. Second, defensively, you might be also under pressure. It's important to understand whenever you're in a 1v1 situation, you need to assess that specific situation. Meaning, if an attacker is in a 1v1 situation and they're getting closer to your box, make sure that you are able to contain, and then put in that tackle. Making sure you do that so that they either get pushed away from your goal, game is delayed to allow your teammates to come and help you defend, or simply you're just making a great tackle, getting the ball out of danger. Another really important aspect for a center back when they are playing in that position is their ability to clear the ball. Anytime any crosses come in, anytime any long balls over the top come in, anytime a through ball comes in, their ability to read that situation, clear the ball either with a header, inside the foot clearance, whatever the case is, making sure that they're defending those central areas first. So let's go right into the first scenario, or the first in possession scenario. So guys, in this particular situation, if, for example, I've talked about this before numerous times, but if, for example, the goalkeeper ever has the ball at their feet, you always want to be that option either to the left or to the right. Depending on the formation that you're playing, you typically want to be those wide options. In this particular scenario, we're playing a 4-4-2 with the blue team. So real simple, being an option to the right and to the left is going to open up space for you and for potentially a center mid checking into those areas. Why do we want to get out wide? Because if you are starting in these zones and then you get out wide, you are forcing the attackers, the strikers, to make a decision. They're either going to stay central and allow for that pass to happen out wide to you, or they might come and press and try to cut off those passing lanes. But whichever one they do, if they come out and press, you're opening up space for that center mid. If the other striker or the other attacking midfielder is covering that center mid, then the other center back is wide open. If they decide to stay and cover the central area, then you are able to receive that ball out wide. That is the reason why you want to open up wide for your goalkeepers. You want to make sure that your team, your teammates, your goalkeeper, your midfielder has all these options available to them. In this next scenario, once you get played that ball out wide, typically what happens is a striker might be making that curve run to cut off that passing lane. They're going to cut off the passing lane to the other center back, or maybe even back to your goalkeeper. In those scenarios, it's important for center backs to have the ability to receive with that back foot, open up their body, and try to play out. In these scenarios, in possession, you usually will have either a center mid checking in this zone. You might have another center mid checking in this zone. Let me change it here. You might also have a fullback out wide. They should be out wide for you. Or you might have a winger checking in that zone. And lastly, you might have a striker making that run into space for a potential long ball over the top. Whichever one it is, obviously it happens in a matter of seconds, so it's your job to find that pass as quick as possible. Let's say, to make it easier for you as a center back, it's important to find those short passes so that you can get rid of the ball quick, help your team progress forward. If you do make that decision, then it's your job to push your line up the field if your team is progressing forward. If you notice that this center mid that receives the ball does not have the option, does not have the option to keep moving forward and they're forced to play back, then it's your job as that center back to stay and be that support option for your center mid. Now, let's say that you have space in front of you. Let's say that the opposing team is now defending in a low block. So they're all dropped back. Let's move these players out. All these players are dropped back, and you have space to progress forward. Your right center back has the ball, and you're now pushing up the field. Take your space. As a center back, it's important to take your space and move forward until a player of the opposing team commits to closing you down or tries to put pressure on you. The opposite side center back should not be this far out wide, unless instructed to do so because your center mid drops into that space. However, if your center mid does not drop into that space, then it's important for you as the other side center back to tuck in and stay relatively close. This line right here is crucial. We want it maybe anywhere between 10 yards, 15 yards max. But this line right here is important because we want to make sure that our two center backs are compact if your center mid does not drop into that space. If your center mid does drop into that space, then now we create this line of 3. 1, 2, 3, right? And we're playing against these two strikers. That is going to open up space in this middle sector over here, okay? Which can be occupied by maybe your other center mid. It could be occupied by maybe your striker checking in. It could be occupied by maybe your other attacking midfielder. Whatever scenario in that specific situation happens, you got to be able to identify this as a center back. If you're able to progress the ball forward and push forward, and then now you have pressure coming to you, it's your time to make a good decision on the ball, okay? Let's say now that, for example, Our team has been pushed up the field. We have all progressed forward. Let me just move these players back to defend. Everybody's up forward, forward, forward defending. These guys are defending. Back line of 2. Good. We have the center mids in this zone. Maybe another center mid here. We have the winger out wide. We have this fullback that has pushed up. Center back. Winger. And then we have the other fullback that has pushed up. Whenever your whole team has pushed up into the field, the goalkeeper has also pushed up, you want to be slightly up. You can either be at the halfway line, being that support for your teammates, or you can be slightly behind. Typically in these scenarios, wherever the ball is, you are always going to be that support option for your team. In case that we are in trouble on one side, they can reset, play backwards, and then we can play out the other way. So for this particular example, let's say the ball is out with the right winger. Your job as a center mid should be slightly shifted over into that half space to potentially be that option to restart play. Okay, if the right center back has pushed over into that right half space, the opposite side center back should be slightly below at an angle for 2 reasons. Number 1, we do not want these square balls played through. It's dangerous. If a striker is able to intercept that, then they beat us both as 2 center backs. We're in trouble. Number 2, being at an angle allows for that other side center back to receive with that back foot and then potentially play out. And actually 3 reasons. And number 3, if that center forward does intercept that pass, I make a bad pass, does intercept it, this center back can close that space a little quicker than being on the same line. So now let's look at another situation. In-game scenarios that potentially sometimes happen is, let's say we're getting caught on a counterattack. Okay. This player received the ball here, and it's a 2v1 situation. This player is dribbling. It's a 2v1 situation. Who should you pick up as a center back? Should you go directly to the ball? Should you pick up the runner making the run in behind? This is a great question. So in these moments, your job, especially in this zone, if we are here in the middle sector, if this is happening in the middle sector of the field, in these moments, it's your job as a center back to try and delay play as much as possible. You do not want to overcommit into this tackle, because if you overcommit, you're just opening up space for this striker to keep making that run in, and then now it's a 1v1 with the goalkeeper. That's what we don't want. So in these scenarios, it's your job to try and delay play as much as possible. Read this run, okay? Read it if they're making a straight run through or if they're making a diagonal run across. If they're making a straight run through, we obviously want to defend the central area first. That is the most dangerous area for any team to defend. So if we can defend that area first and be focused on that, then that's our primary focus in those particular situations. So for example, if this player is just making this straight run, you're over here jockeying, trying to delay play. Once that ball gets played through, that is our cue to turn, work our butts off, hit that sprint, and try to catch up to this player making this run. Okay? That, in those moments, now we have to try, continue to delay play. Your other teammates should be working back, trying to recover, and trying to help you defend in those scenarios. Now, if we are progressed up the field, and now it's a counterattack happening around the 18-yard box. Let's say the counterattack is now happening in these zones. Okay. and it's a 2v1 situation. Once the ball is getting into this zone, now you need to make a decision, and you don't have much time to make a decision. So in these areas is when, yes, now you have to commit a tackle. Now you have to take that dive and try, and don't hesitate in those moments, because the more that you delay play, the closer that team gets, that those strikers get, and now they might have a clear shot on goal. So in these situations, on these counterattacks, trying to read the play, right? You're in a zone where you're kind of connected with both players, and you're able to either react to one or the other. If number 9 continues to dribble and then makes a decision to cut out to their left, then obviously that's the player you pick up. If number 9 continues to dribble and then you see that they put their head down to make that pass, then that's when you react and try to pick up number 11 making that run. And that's when you come up with those big 1v1 defending plays, make a tackle, save your team from getting scored on. So that is one of the things that I wanted to cover in terms of making those recovery runs anytime that there is a counterattack on your side and it's a 2 versus 1 situation. Your objective, again, in the midfield third is try and delay play. If you are now in your defensive zone, they're attacking third, then you need to make a decision. The closer they get to your box, the more dangerous it gets, and you need to come up with a big tackle. Okay, so next, whenever a ball does get played in diagonal, let's say it's a diagonal run, okay, if this center back number 5 is stepping to this play and this other striker is making that diagonal run, weak side center back should be able to identify this. All right, your job is to follow that runner. If that ball does get played into that space and this striker or attacking midfielder is making that run, even though you're on the other side, you need to follow that runner, because you are the only player in that specific moment that saw that play happening. So you need to follow that player all the way, again, trying to delay play, trying to defend, and trying your best to come up with a big defensive play. Because the other center back, once that happens, they should drop in to your position, and then in that specific moment, you guys have switched positions temporarily. Once play is delayed, maybe this player takes a touch backwards because you're doing such a great job of defending, we stay together and, of course, again, try to maintain defensive order in our back line. So those are 2 key things as a center back whenever we are getting counterattacked, whenever we need to follow any types of runner, whenever those situations happen in those areas of the field. Now, I've also gotten asked plenty of times, what happens if your fullback gets beat? Okay, so let's push the players up the field again. I hope everybody's having a fantastic day, making sure that we are learning little things about tactics, everything about center backs. You know, this is something that's really important for players to understand and focus on these small little details, guys. All these moments happen in a matter of seconds when you play. So if you're able to kind of see it from a different perspective, you know, you're going to be like, oh, those moments, they're happening right now. I remember that, you know, coach told me to do this, so maybe this is a scenario to do it, okay? But as long as you have the answers to different scenarios, you might have a better idea of what to do in that specific scenario. So it's important to understand, guys, exactly what it is that potentially might happen and what separates good defenders, from great defenders, is the ability to make that right decision in the right moment. So if the winger, really skillful winger, takes this fullback on, beats that fullback, thank you very much, winger's gone. Should this center back step out and defend, or should they stay inside and let that winger continue dribbling? Great question. This is what should happen. Depending on where they are on the field, guys, it's important to understand that if they are in a dangerous zone, so let's say they are in here and your fullback got beat, no need to step out all the way. You don't need to step out all the way. You definitely step out of your zone to provide a little bit of pressure, but you don't need to dive all the way in. So you're going to step out of your zone, again, trying to delay play, trying to make sure that everybody can get repositioned back into their position, allowing for potentially this fullback to work his butt off or their butt off to try and get back into position. But you are going to be in this zone trying to delay play, trying to force that winger to restart and go backwards. Okay? If anything, if they continue dribbling and they don't go backwards, we want to try and force them down the line. Forcing them down the line in this zone right here. Let me highlight. Into this zone right here is essentially what we're trying to do, because then they're going to be in the corner. We're not allowing them to cut into the central area, which is the most dangerous part of the field. That's what we don't want. This is also going to allow for our other teammates, again, to drop in and try and defend that particular scenario. Now, let's say that your fullback now gets beat, maybe in this zone, right? Your fullback got beat. Boom, they got beat. And now they're dribbling inside the box. This winger. Should you step out? Absolutely. Once they cross this zone, the 18-yard box, more into the attacking third, this is where you need to come up with that big play. Don't commit a foul in the box, because obviously it's going to be a PK. But this is when we have to be a little tighter, add a little bit of more pressure, make it difficult for that winger to get any type of shot off, any type of cross off, anything in those scenarios. Try to close down the gaps, try to close down the passing lanes, and try again to come up with that big defensive play. If you are on the other side, as a center back, what do? You drop into this zone right here. Your other fullback should be dropping into this zone right here. Your center mid should be dropping centrally. Your other center mid, same thing, should be dropping centrally. And then we're all defending as a unit. But most importantly, again, is your ability to try and maintain this back line to where we are kind of lined up like this. Okay? Again, if that ball does get played out, let's say the winger's out here. Let's just look at it from the other side. Winger beats this fullback, right? Fullback got beat. Center back would step out to try and defend. The other side center back would tuck in. You can use the 6-yard box as a reference or the first post as a reference. The weak side fullback would tuck in over here. And then it would look something like this. 1, 2. And then my center mids would be in this zone as well, covering the central area. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 players covering that central area, guys. Depending on where maybe a striker is, if the striker is in here, you want to maintain the striker in front of you. If the striker is behind you, we want to maintain that striker in front of us. in front of us, next to us. We never want to have that striker on the blind side. If we are caught up too high up and this pass gets played through, they're alone in that little gap, a goal can happen. So you always want to try and typically be between the 6-yard box, the first post, and 6-yard box. In this little zone right here, this is typically where you are going to be anytime that the ball does get played out, the winger has it, beats your fullback, center back shifts out, and you're that weak side center back and you're shifting in. Typically, you're going to be in those zones right there. All right. And let's see, what else can we cover? As a center back, what else can we cover? Yeah, guys, I think that is pretty much it to be playing in the center back position. I hope I covered everything. If you have any other questions, just shoot me a message, comment below, whatever else that you need. But that is typically the most important thing to remember as a center back whenever you are playing. Just remember, just to give you an overview, defensively, when we are out of possession. When we are out of possession, guys, quick overview. We want to make sure that we maintain order in our back line. So right now we are playing as the blue team. Red team has the ball. We want to make sure that we maintain order in our back line, that we are all well connected. Boom, boom, boom. The ball gets shifted over. Obviously, in these zones, the wide areas, it's the fullback's job to apply pressure and force that winger to try and play backwards. But you as a center back need to shift over to provide that coverage for your fullback in case the fullback does get beat. You do not want to come out too far wide. You want to stay in line with potentially the 18-yard box or in reference to wherever this striker is. If the striker is behind you, either your weak side center back is going to pick them up. If the striker is more towards your area, you want to be focused on this striker primarily than being that support for your fullback. The only time that you are going to leave this striker alone for a split second is if your fullback does get beat. Then you're going to shift over and apply that pressure, which is going to allow for the other side center back to shift in, or even for your center mid to shift in and pick that player up. But again, it depends on the scenario. If the ball gets rotated over to the other side, then we shift over. Fullback steps out to apply pressure. Center back shifts over to provide that coverage, slightly at an angle. Other center back shifts into that central area, and the opposite side fullback should shift over into that half space. Always trying to maintain that line that I'm talking to you about. Boom, boom, boom. If the ball is on this side and everybody's pinched in, this winger is not dangerous right now. So if this fullback stays out wide trying to mark that winger, call them inside. Make sure they're in the same line as you. If the ball is ever in those central areas and this striker or attacking midfielder checks into that space, you need to be aware of who is closest to pick up that player. If there is a center mid that is close, you got to tell them, communicate, hey, shift left, shift right, behind you, right shoulder, left shoulder, whatever it is, you need to communicate that. If this player is wide open in your zone, then you need to follow and apply that pressure. The opposite side the opposite side center back needs to drop off and provide that coverage for that center back. Same thing will apply anytime that there is a long ball over the top. Okay, one center back is going to step out and try to win that header. the other center back is going to drop off and provide that coverage. In possession, quick summary, two center backs should be wide, should be providing an option for the goalkeeper either to the right or to the left to open up space for themselves and for their midfielders inside. As the ball progresses forward, we want to tuck in now and be in those half spaces, allowing for an option to be, for you to be an option for your center mids, for your fullbacks, whatever the case may be. If the ball is progressed into the opponent's half, then we want to push up our lines at least to half field or slightly behind half field where the center circle starts on your side, so that we can push the whole team up forward, and then now we keep the opponent squeezed in their half. And yeah, guys, that is pretty much it for center backs. I hope you enjoyed today's tactical session of center backs. If you have any other questions, make sure to comment below, ask any questions, shoot me a DM, and we'll get right into it. Do not forget to purchase your position blueprints. I cover all this information in the position blueprints with videos of actual scenarios or actual movements that, you know, for example, the center backs are going to be making. So until next time, take care, guys.